Hey, y'all. I'm Colin Demerest. I write Axios Future Defense. My bosses would be very ashamed if I didn't plug it. It comes out every Wednesday. It's the best newsletter in the game. You can read it, you can subscribe it, and you can get back to me and let me know if I'm lying or not. We have about an hour today to talk about defense tech, raising money, doing business, that sort of thing. I'm going to try and save 15-ish, 20-ish minutes at the back end for audience questions, so please get those cooking. And I believe these mics you can walk up to and we'll throw them out to the panel. Let's go down the line, do introductions, keep the resumes short, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Thanks, Colin. I just also want to say thanks to Tim, the Context team, and everybody else behind the event. Thank you for putting this on. It's an important, critical, and very enjoyable event, and we love doing it here at the Marines Memorial. Garrett Smith, founder and CEO at Reveal Technology. I'm a Marine Corps officer by deep background. I've got about 22 and a half mixed years of active duty and reserve time, enlisted and officer. And I caught the national security bug way back when and couldn't shake it, and am grateful to still be on mission with Reveal.
Klay Rochelle, RX Aerospace CEO and co-founder. Another Marine. Looks like we got all three Marines on stage here. So hoorah to that. Background intelligence, and around 2002, 2003, when we entered Iraq, we started using UAVs in the sky, and ever since then, since about 2002 to 2003, 25 years ago, they've been incredible assets to change the game in combat. And our team at RX Aerospace, we've been doing it for a long time, and luckily enough, we're subject matter experts in it, and it's a beautiful building here. I'm a Marine, we're all Marines. My first time here, I think it's awesome. I didn't even know this existed here, so great facility. I look forward to coming back, and great to meet you all.
Hello, Andrew Dimitruk. I want to start off by thanking Tim and the whole Context team for everything they've done here. I think this has just been a terrific event. My background, I was in the Marine Corps as well for 10 years as a Cobra attack pilot, and then did a bunch of different things, but the last 8 years was spent with Shield AI, scaling operations, the last 4 years as the COO, and I've recently left Shield AI to start Ironflow AI to solve one of the key problems I experienced at Shield, and we're building an AI native ERP.
Awesome, thanks guys. I will start with a softball, admittedly, but what's it take to start a defense tech business? Why get into it? Maybe, no, go ahead, Garrett. Yeah.
Deep ignorance. Period.
Hard-headed, jump in, don't look forward to sleeping, don't know the answers, don't be afraid. Say yes, just do it. You'll figure it out. A lot of people don't. I think I remember when I was like 29, 30, I flipped a script in my head where I was like, from here on out, you're gonna be a yes man no matter what. And it's like the no fear stickers, but it's true. And give yourself a lot more credence than you know. Your team's very smart around you. You build a good team around you, you'll be successful. So believe in you and yourself and your team. And I think that's what it takes.
Andrew, I'm very interested in your take because you left Shield AI to start this business.
So I'll frame it like this. I've had a lot of opportunity to observe a lot of veterans, and the pattern I found amongst those that were successful are they thrive in chaos. And I think this is true for most veterans. There's this common misconception out there that veterans need structure, they need to go somewhere big. I think veterans do need structure, but the best place they operate is in chaos where there's no structure. Because they come in and they push the structure onto the organization, they make things work, and they just thrive in that environment. So working at a startup like Shield definitely showed me that, and there's nothing more chaotic than an early startup, so I decided to take a crack at it, and it's been amazing.
I think that's pretty brilliant, actually, yeah. Being able to thrive in chaos is exactly what vets do, so that's pretty cool. I agree with that 100%.
Do you need to be a bit of a character or an enigma to start a business like this? I'm thinking of an Alex Karp, a Palmer Luckey, the people that get the headlines, right? Like they all act a certain way. They all have their reputations. They approach problems with the signature approach. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think you have to be a bit eccentric because you have to be comfortable challenging conventional wisdom. If it was obvious, everyone would be doing it. So you have to step into something and be prepared for that. And so I do think successful entrepreneurs tend to be somewhat eccentric and have strong opinions and feel for some crazy reason like they're the person to solve that problem.
Eccentricity alone is not enough, right? You have to back it up with performance and the delivery of something that's actually valuable to the market. So I think that might just be kind of window dressing or maybe an accelerant or a hype generator, but it has to be backed or centered on something that's actually truly valuable in the world.
It makes people write headlines, doesn't it?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I thought about growing the mullet, but I stayed in the reserves. They said no, so I had to figure something else out.
And so how do you separate the hype from the real, right? To the same point, like how do you distinguish your companies? How do you distinguish yourselves as business leaders? There's a lot of noise out there, certainly.
I guess I'll, to build off what was just said, results matter. Yeah. That's how you distinguish yourself. I used to tell my team this all the time. It doesn't matter, how pretty it was that you did or what you did. If it didn't generate the results, it didn't matter. And so that's very much in my mindset, and the mindset of my co-founder is that the way we distinguish ourselves is by making it happen. And that's never easy. It's always very messy. And I know that's simple to say, but it's all about execution.
Generating proof points matter somewhat for investors, but if you center on investors or folks external or separate from your target end user or customer set, and you try your hardest to prove to them that you're valuable rather than first proving to your end user and customer community that you're valuable, that's when you set yourself up for disaster, right? So full agree that proof lies with the customer, with the user, and only once they are feeling the value and feeling good about what you're doing, should you then turn around and tell that same story to the outside world. If you get too fixated on proving value and proving that you're not overhyped or proving this isn't all vapor, but the person you're trying to prove is an investor or a journalist or your friends or whatever, honestly, none of that matters. The real stuff that matters is the end user, the value center of your customer base.
Klay, your thoughts?
Yeah, so kind of an example here. The reason I'm at TIM is because I worked with Dimitruk here at Shield AI. He was my COO. Shield AI bought our company in 2021, I think for $230 million on the round D. But it goes to show that your career path, the 20, 25 years, like your name recognition, people know who you are. So if you do burn a bridge, you're going to burn a bridge. And I think if Dimitruk, if I would have burned my bridge with him long ago, he probably wouldn't have introduced our team to Tim, and we wouldn't be here. So your name is kind of everything in your industry, and so don't ever burn that. And I think that gives you a lot of credence.
Do you think defense tech, especially on the veterans side of it, is very insular, very close-knit? And then how do you navigate that, right? To your point about burning bridges, maintaining your name and your respect.
So in our industry, Group 2, Group 3, UAS, I mean, we have, ever since I met these guys after the military, 2007, 2008, it was a niche industry of no more than like 3,000 to 4,000 people. And since then, those same 3,000, 4,000 people have split into like 12 different companies across the spectrum. But it's still like, yes, there's been new people added to it, but that still foundational base of 3,000 or 4,000 people all know each other. And so I'd have to 100% say yes to that, like no doubt. I don't know how it is in the other industries, but our niche industry, everyone knows everyone. Ain't that right, John? Lockheed. Met him back there in 2007, 2008.
You know half the room at this point.
Well, we know John. We were like, what are you doing here, John? Oh, that's cool, yeah. Point proven.
Garrett, Andrew?
I guess I agree with everything that was said. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that any industry isn't this way. You know your community and they know you. I guess probably the key takeaway here is that you're always being evaluated, always. In every situation, in every encounter, you're being evaluated and you're being remembered for sort of how you impacted that person. Point being, always be aware of that. If you're a jerk to somebody, that could come back to bite you. You see that in any industry, in any environment. That would happen tons in the military. You know, some captain was lippy to some major, and then 10 years later, oh gosh, that officer was on their promotion board and they didn't get it. So you're always selling yourself, your idea, your performance, your results. You're never off the clock. Never off the clock.
I'll let you go, and then I gotta follow that up with an example.
I think the defense technology kind of renaissance phase that we're in, which started in the mid-2010s with Shield AI's founding in 2015, Anduril 2017, right? So those early days, it was a very small, almost niche crowd that thought about or cared about these problems. The investor community was pretty dubious about investing. The big tech community was turning down or walking out on contracts with the national security apparatus. And it was only over time that it became less insular. And I think that's been good for the industry in the sense that you leverage the broader base of talent and smarts that can and should go into solving national security problems. So I think it's becoming less insular, and it's becoming more kind of well understood, and these pathways that we've all walked down for a few years are becoming well trod, right? And I think all of that serves the national good. I don't think it's quite as insular as maybe some think.
Your example, Klay.
So furthering on Dimitruk's point, this audience, we're like, we have a saying in our industry when we used to pick people that we wanted to work with, because even after the military, we would deploy for 6, 9, 12 months at a time as a civilian contractor. And sometimes you're living with people on a ship, and space is very limited, or you're sleeping in the same can as them. Point is, you can't get away from them because you're on base. It's not like you can go to a bar, library, or do your own thing. It's either the gym or chow hall, and you're going to sleep, and you're working with them again on another 14-hour shift tomorrow. So the way that we used to pick people, good teammates, was the no D-bag policy. Do not be an asshole. And that goes back to your name. And so people remember who the assholes are. And I think that goes right along with your point. Don't be an asshole. People don't like assholes.
Believe it or not, that was part of the Axios interviewing process. We have a no assholes rule.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you call it that, or do you call it the no D-bag rule?
I think we call it the no assholes rule.
Okay.
And I passed, apparently, so. To be a successful defense tech founder or executive, do you need a military background? And maybe to phrase it differently is, do y'all in the audience think differently of a defense tech founder that hasn't served, whether that is active or reserve or whatever component you're thinking?
Apparently you don't need one, they'll just hand you one later.
Who's that?
Yeah, so I don't think it's necessary, but it is very useful, right? So the three of us, I think we are unique in our roles because we have deep empathy with our target end user, our customer, the system that governs whether they can or can't adopt things, right? And so I'm not saying that that's absolutely critical for the leader, but I think you do need a significant number of your key leadership to be represented from your user community, from the customer base. And again, like, there's the uniformed flavor, but there are plenty of civilian national security professionals from across the spectrum, frontline operators, acquisitions professionals, program managers, and everybody in between. I think any of those roles will bring the necessary amount of customer side empathy into the equation so that you're building the right thing and adhering to the process insofar as it's useful to deliver that capability into the market.
Klay, Andrew?
Yeah, so to that point, I mean, I love Anduril and Palmer Luckey, and that's a great example of a person exactly like that. But the very first thing he did was surround himself with those people and trusted them. And he had his own vision, but great people around him that have a lot of experience, and that goes back to building the right team. Mm-hmm. With the right team, I think anything's possible.
I think what Klay said is spot on. I don't think you need to be a veteran. I think it does help a lot with credibility, but as long as you surround yourself with the right people, that helps a lot. I will say, when you're selling to the DoD especially, you walk into that room and you're going to get browbeat a lot. And having the credibility to know when you can push back because you just know what you're talking about helped me a lot and helped Shield AI a lot. There were some things that just didn't make sense, and if you could speak to that with confidence because you're a veteran and you know what's going on, that helps. So I'd say if you don't have to be a veteran. If you're not a veteran, surround yourself with veterans ideally, or people that know what they're talking about, because you're going to need it.
And to the same point, hiring, right? Building your team. What are you guys looking for from the workforce in your various stages of the company's What do you need? Is there enough of those kinds of people, or is it kind of a bloodbath hiring right now?
To your point, Colin, I mean, it changes phase to phase. So up until about 18 or 20 months ago, we were in that everybody wears 3 to 25 hats. Everybody needs to hustle. There's kind of an unspoken expectation that you're going to take some calls on the weekend, maybe a lot. You're probably going to work late into the evening some nights, maybe every night, right? There's this hustle phase where you need people who just have energy, they're smart, they're willing to go out and hustle and solve problems, and they're willing to get outside of a formal role scope or lane. But once we hit a certain level of maturity, and this was right around the time we raised a Series B last year, and we were getting into the transition point of non-recurring services revenue, primarily with government customers, into actual procurement spending and production grade software licensing footing, and we needed to really juice up the professionalism in the organization. And over the succeeding 12 months, we tripled in headcount, that sort of thing. We then flipped from finding hustlers to finding deep subject matter experts and specialists who could focus on doing one thing or two things extremely well, and then you can defer those specialist requirements to those subject matter experts. So I think that's a stage of maturity thing. We're in that phase, and it's a joy to be hiring true subject matter experts, but you lose a little bit of that hustle.
We talked about this last night a little bit, and everyone agreed fire fast, right?
Yes.
Fire fast.
That's what these two said.
Sure.
I'm like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Did you want to talk about that?
Sure. You heard yesterday a lot of great advice, and one of them was hire slow, fire fast. And so I thought about that, and I do agree with it, but I want to make it a little bit simpler. I think the most important thing you can do is fire fast, which is not a very popular thing to say, but let me explain why I think that's so important. When you go out and hire people, I think I'm pretty good at it. I put a lot of effort into it. Let's say you've got an 80% hit rate. 80% hit rate. You will not get it right. And when you don't get it right, it is really important to make a quick decision and fire fast. Because if you don't, the cost of that person is so large. And it's about, like, they take your attention away, they poison the culture of the team. You have to act fast. I'll put it another way. Imagine you were hiring for one role, and you got to say, have a go, and if it didn't work, you just get to have another go, and another go, and another go. And each time was 80% hit rate. On the first round, you have an 80% chance of getting it right. On the second round, you have a 96% chance of getting it right in those first two. On the third, 99. By the fifth, it's 99.9, and by the 10th is 99.999999999. That's the compounding results. But the way you get there is you fire fast. So basically, I would say the best and surest way to hire an elite team is to make sure that if somebody is an elite, you get them off the team fast.
It's almost like we have lessons learned on that, and the bad people create super cancer, and super cancer you can't just carve out. Like, it is super destructive, and then it just dominoes into everyone else's time, money. I mean, it's killing the culture is the worst thing in the world. So, what RX Aerospace is kind of lucky at is that we've been able to work with the same people for 20, 25 years in this niche community. So we know who can pull the weight and who's a good subject matter expert already on day one. And so odds are is I'm not going to hire the asshole because I already know he's not an asshole. Right? I've worked with him in Iraq, Afghanistan, Africa, and on ships. And the guy's super pleasant, and he's a 250%er, 16, 20-hour days, and he's going to be there with me while I'm solving the problems. And so that's who you create the team with. And so we kind of have a cheat code at ARX because we've already been there and done that, and it's very much rinse and repeat for the fourth or fifth time. It's just now we have a new airplane. And so that is kind of different from like other founders. And then everyone, like we've all worn the same 4 logos. So ours is a little bit different situation. We're not going to hire someone that I'm going to have to fire fast because we know who we're hiring. And you got like a 200-person lead time on that before we get to that next level.
Are there enough of those people? I'm sorry, Andrew. Are there enough of those people, or are there enough of those candidates out there that you can afford to fire fast?
Short answer is yes. To build off of what Klay said, because it's not all negative. If you've worked with somebody before and you know what you're getting, right? Like you're gonna hit, because you already know what you're getting. It's in those many situations where you're not quite sure and you're just doing an interview. Somebody said, don't trust interviews yesterday. Couldn't agree more with that, right? I'm very skeptical of my views for interviews. But if somebody comes through the door and I know somebody that can vouch for them, then it's probably going to be good. And then the other thing, I definitely look for athletes, even in the later stages. I think athletes are so important because you just can't predict what's going to go wrong. You don't know where the need is going to be. And so I operate off of like first who, then what. If I talk to somebody that I think is amazing, I bring them on the team, even if I don't know what role I'm going to put them in, because every time I've done that, they've been amazing, and they've slotted themselves into just the right role to provide the value. And so I can't emphasize enough, just if you find a good person, just bring them onto your team. You won't regret it. Talent solves all problems. You don't know what the problems are in the future, so just have good people around, and you're going to be able to solve them. The last thing I'll just say on this sort of fire fast thing is, and from experience, I probably had hundreds of cases of either seeing it myself or somebody coming up to me and saying, I'm having a problem with this person. The second they say that, to me, the outcome is pretty much inevitable. I've seen one case across those hundreds where somebody turned around and ended up being really good. Every single other time, you just delay the inevitable. And that's why I would when my team would come to me, it's like, I'm having concerns with this person. For the most part, I would say, I think you should think about terminating them. I'm also, I'm a Christian, right? So I'm not a monster. I take very seriously these decisions, and I understand how they're going to affect people. But I'll tell you another side of it, which is everyone I've ever reached out to that I've terminated has been thankful that that happened, because it wasn't the right role for them. And they knew it, and we knew it. And if you keep that going, they're just miserable, and they get more miserable. So by being quick and decisive in that, you are doing that person a favor. They won't see it in the moment, but they will see it eventually, I'm sure of it. And so that's why you as a founder especially, if you are fast to fire, you will not regret it.
If we step back and look at kind of the defense tech scene more broadly, do you think there's too many defense tech startups? Is it feeling bloated? Is it feeling off kilter? I think I'm personally interested in this idea of defense tech tourists. Either that's on the hardware side, on the software side, or even on the financing side. People who are jumping in because it's sexy right now, but might pull the plug when things get a little uglier. What do you guys make of the scene in general?
I'm pretty excited that there has been as much energy and company formation and talent and investment in this industry as there has been. And I think it might even be heating up still. I guess only time will tell. I think this is Darwinism. You need a lot of stuff to happen, and then the good will rise, and the rest will kind of fail, fizzle, merge, all of that stuff. There is a trend line, right? We're about 10-ish years into this defense technology renaissance, and the early mid-20-teens defense investing kind of wave that built up to whatever it is now, whether it's growing or not. We're 10-ish years into fund life cycles that we're making investments early on, and there's going to have to be some churn and some company death, right? There's going to be some M&A activity. There's going to be consolidation. We need to start seeing outcomes. But I would say that from my perspective, it's plateauing, maybe heating up still, and it will for a couple of years. But we're within 5 years of seeing some real outcomes, negative and positive, all of which will either lead to a next wave of continued energy, maybe more targeted, more focused, or otherwise. We'll see. And then obviously the geopolitical scene dictates a lot of what happens in this industry. So maybe investors are getting a little bit tired, but is China going to take Taiwan in 2027? I mean, if that actually kind of ticks off, then there will be additional investment coming from all sources, government, private, and everything in between. So I think there's a lot of uncertainty and whatever, but I think it's good. I think this is a good phase, and it's going to get better.
Yeah, I think it should be this way. I really like it, and I think we were talking last night, and I really liked what you educated me on your synopsis of the pyramid effect. Can you tell the audience about your pyramid? Because I think this goes right into what creates more defense tech companies and more defense companies. So it's pretty cool insight.
Okay, here goes. I hope you're fans of history. There have been a few phases in history where there was a lot of geopolitical instability, war. And those periods match when there's what I call a flattening of a pyramid. So you could think of it like 20 years ago, the US had like a near monopoly on precision fire, type of capability. Not exactly, but close to it, let's call it. That has narrowed incredibly over the past few years, and what that does is it causes a huge amount of instability. So here are some examples. When after the start of the Iron Age was one of these periods, because all of a sudden everyone could like make weapons, and there was a bunch of warfare and a bunch of civilizations fell. Gunpowder was another one where you had to train an archer for like years, and it was like from birth, and then all of a sudden you just can put a rifle in the hands of somebody and they can start shooting. So you saw these huge citizen armies pop up all over Europe, and man, there's a lot of war. I think we're in one of those. I think you're going to see an amazing amount of instability. It's not really a good thing, but it is what it is. And so I think that the need for new defense tech startups will maintain somewhat. I think there'll be some consolidation, but don't just look at this like a US problem. It is a world problem, and the whole world will be investing a lot in defense, I think, over the next few decades.
So you said it like we used to be the tip of the pyramid because we were like the pinnacle of everything and be all weapon systems and so on. And Ukraine and Russia kind of flattened that and leveled the playing field with the drones and everything that they're using. So now a $4,000 or $200 drone is destroying a $7 million tank.
Yeah.
The pyramid collapsed.
The cost inversion has been insane. And then you think about like a country like, I don't know, UAE or somewhere in the Middle East. Like the only thing that stands between them and getting this precision strike capability, right, is a few $1 billion, build some factories, build some drones, that's all accessible, invest in some AI, and all of a sudden you've got autonomous drones. The barriers to getting that are not that high anymore. And what that means is like everyone's going to get their hands on these. For countries like the US that have a very large defense system, we'll probably be able to weather this fairly well. But if you're a smaller country, I think you're going to have an interesting next few decades.
I thought it was cool, right? Like I didn't really think about it like that. So it was kind of enlightening last night to hear that.
Yeah,
I just wanted to share it with them.
The wine helped it.
The wine made it sound even cooler.
Last night.
I want to follow up on this bit about the Russia-Ukraine war. If you're building precision munitions, if you're building drones of any size, whatever, as a company, do you need Ukraine experience or exposure to be relevant, or does that really put you above the rest of the runners?
I will say that making your testing as realistic as possible is always a good thing. So the obvious statement is, if you can get your technology to the front line and actually have it used in battle, you're going to learn a lot more very quickly. And so I think it's crazy if you're building defense tech not to try and get your technology downrange and have it used in the real thing. Things will break. Things will not work well. And you can do that in a simulated environment. You can do that in a training environment, but real combat, there's no match for it. So yes, get to Ukraine, have it tested.
The trick for American defense technology innovation is how do we occupy a wartime mindset without actually being in hot conflict ourselves and allow that to inspire us to make necessary changes, be they bureaucratic, acquisition process, technological, whatever, program management, whatever. And I think that we as a nation are currently doing fairly well at that without being directly involved in the Ukraine conflict.
I wanted to ask then, as a follow-up, you hear Secretary Hegseth talk about the wartime footing, CTO Emil Michaels talking about the wartime footing. You're seeing the production ramp-ups with Lockheed and RTX and all of them. Are you guys feeling it? Maybe on a lower level, not the big boys, not the legacy primes, but on like a step or two down. Is that also making its way there?
I mean, there's a lot of press releases, but is there like truckloads of money coming to where I'm like having to ramp up really fast? No, I think you still have to like go out and get it and earn it. I think it's good for investors to see that the pot has grown substantially, the budgets have gotten passed, and it kind of gives you a great projection on where we're going. And kind of let you know maybe what field you're in is a good field for the time, and you're in the right spot at the right time, and so on for all the pieces of the holes in the cheese to align, if you will. And that's kind of what I take away from it. But it's not like, I don't think it's made it super more easy. Like, here's a truck ton of money, so just go make it happen. It's like, thanks, Uncle Pete, we love you. Like, keep going.
I think we need to give it some time because the new administration has only been in place for a year. The Secretary Hegseth memos and kind of policy shifts that happened last summer, right? And this is the largest bureaucratic organization ever constituted by humankind ever in the history of ever. Let's give it more than 6 or 9 months to give them like a final report card. We are encouraged. We see a non-traditional contractor bias from many of our senior acquisition officials that we're engaged with. And Secretary of the Army Driscoll, was the most forward-leaning in reorganizing much of the U.S. Army's acquisitions ecosystem into this portfolio acquisition executive structure, which might just seem like adding a couple more layers of bureaucracy to org charts. But what it really did was streamline the requirements and the budget expenditure process into a single cohesive organization, whereas before those things were decoupled. So this might seem kind of pedantic, narrow, or whatever, but it is important, and I think as it plays out over a series of fiscal year cycles in the US government with an increased budget, I think that it can only be good.
I think that I think a lot of the actions being taken across the DoD and across industry are the right ones, and I do think it is flowing down, down the food chain. The experience of Shield AI in the early years is very different to what it is today, and there's too many things to talk about what's changed to make it so much better. But I think it is a lot better. I do believe that the reindustrialization of America for like large near-peer war it's in its infancy. It's got a long way to go and not much time to get there. And so I think this is sort of the problem for the nation right now, is to get ourselves onto that footing, so that, because we all know this, should conflict flare up, and I hope it doesn't, it will be brutal. We will lose a lot very quickly. And the time it takes to bring that capability back into service, it's just too long. We all know this is an obvious statement. It's just too long. And so what do? We got to be able to stamp out a lot of new stuff very, very quickly. We got to be able to train up people very, very quickly. It is a whole of nation problem, and we have to solve it.
What's it like raising money right now, Garrett? I know you just did $30 million over the summer. This is a very frothy, I've heard it described. I've heard it described as a bubble. I've heard it described as a brush fire. A lot of nouns out there. How are you thinking about it?
Having raised money in this company now over a period of 7 years, and if you go back to the earliest days, the experience was a lot of investor education. Like, this is defense. It is worth investing in. Like, don't walk out of the room. Let me tell you a couple more things about it. You know, that kind of investor education mindset. We had to exercise a lot of kind of patience and whip out the persuasion dialogue. I think that over time, investors have become smarter. It's become a more competitive environment, which is a good thing for everybody. It means investors are getting sharper. It means that companies are being fought over by investors. The competitive element in there is good. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money being invested at some truly insane private valuation multiples. So I think that this is a great time to raise money, especially in the early stages. That being said, we're out in this kind of Series C phase of growth. I think that once you get to this stage, like, you're either turning in, results or you're not, and it's becoming more discerning, more brutal, and more decisive. Like investors at this stage, like either you are performing at a Series B, Series C level, or you're not, and they'll say no very quickly. So we have experienced that threshing effect as we've grown, and I think we're turning in results. Some of our investors are in the room; they could tell you if we are.
So I got a fun story that's kind of like bridging this gap where we're defense startups, and so you go to defense people and you pitch the deck the defense way, and it's defense people, defense minded, and they understand defense and they understand defense valuations. Well, we tried doing that in Texas with oil and gas people. It was not the same turnout. They did not understand how all of a sudden you go from a $10 million valuation in Q1 to like a $100 million valuation by summer, and milestones and so on and so on and so on. And they're used to tangible evidence of whatever they have in the ground or on the oil rig or whatever, what have you, that you can take to the bank, so to speak, and it is just a completely different mindset. So I guess the takeaway here is what we kind of learned is it's not there's no point in like really wasting your time. Like they either get defense or they don't. Like your job is not to educate them. Your job is to get with the VCs that already know defense and like use the defense network, so that way you're all speaking the same language and you can be more efficient that way, more economical.
Before we jump to you, Andrew, what is that tangible evidence in defense? Is that a contract? Is that a CRADA? Is that a StratFi, whatever acronym?
It's not a CRADA.
Definitely not a CRADA.
CRADA's
We've all had CRADAs.
CRADA's helpful.
I think it's a science, actually, in defense. It needs to be milestone proven and driven, of course. Like there needs to be prototypes. That's another way. And then also in defense, you walk up the TRL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is what we've done for the past 20, 25 years. So I think as long as you can speak it, you have a good plan, it's not pixie dust or snake oil, then you can actually get there. And it is all about the story. And that's why you really need to brief like the subject matter experts in the industry, because they don't, like if we do UAVs and they don't really know UAVs, they're going to not understand why this is actually like a unicorn aircraft, right? So if you're going to have to over-educate people, you might be wasting your time.
Didn't mean to cut you off, Andrew. I want to get to you.
No. I'm reflecting on my early experience at Shield. So when we went out and invested in those early days, nobody knew anything about defense. Nothing. And we were constantly educating our investors on it. And it was very challenging. The unit economics are different. The way contracts are won is different. There were so many misconceptions. I think there's so many new entrants into this space. You're still doing the same thing. But I will say that if you have an investor who doesn't understand defense, then you will spend a lot of time getting them smart on defense, because they will have a lot of questions and they need to understand and why at times they need to be patient, at times they need to be happy, at times they need to be sad. It's like it's a whole new way of doing business.
About defense sales cycles,
yeah,
and how fun that is.
Yeah. Just like managing
to a civilian going from the commercial to the defense sales cycle, it is like you can see the head explode.
Yeah. But I think I think that overall the now investors are so much smarter on this stuff. There's so much more capital that can be invested in it. So it's a infinitely better situation than it was when Shield started, which is obvious. But I think it's gotten a lot better.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think like Shield and Andrew, like they helped pave the way a lot of that to really do some of that conversion with those non-defense entities, and kind of brought that to life. So a lot of kudos, goes out to them. But yeah, when they're not defense and you have to over-educate, it is blisteringly a long process. So yeah.
To this point about cycles, are y'all worried at all, or do you foresee maybe a Google Maven moment 2.0 again, where defense tech gets its backlash moment, where it's not as cool or digestible as other markets?
I think it's probably inevitable at some point. It's if you have one big failure, could switch the entire narrative for a while. It's just human psychology. These things go in cycles. And so I do believe that will happen. The question is, like, how will it materialize? How big will it be? How long will it take the market to recover? As I've said, I think, sort of structurally in the world with the geopolitics going on right now, it would surprise me if suddenly the world gets super peaceful and everyone's singing Kumbaya. I don't see that in the making. So I think there will be cycles, but ultimately the demand will be fairly consistent.
We've been engaging with Series C, candidate Series C lead investors who can write very large checks. Many of those out there haven't yet made big bets into the defense industry, and so we're sometimes the first such investment target that they are encountering. And a few weeks ago, I talked with an investor who said, we're only interested in investing in defensive capabilities, reactive capabilities, and I think that's too bad. I think that that defensive capabilities will not deter adversaries. Just look at Israel, right? They have incredible missile defense capability, incredible, right? We helped them build it, we, America. It has not deterred their enemies. Hezbollah still lobs rockets in from Lebanon, right? The militant elements in Hamas still fire rockets in from Gaza and elsewhere, right? Like, it is not a defensive only technological posture isn't enough. And you have to actually build, and I think America is waking up to this in a positive and a good way. You have to build lethality. You have to build force projection capability, and then you hope you never ever have to use it, right? And only by preparing to absolutely win the next conflict do you deter that next conflict. And I think America over the past 5-10 years, as defense technology and as politics has been turned upside down and backwards and everything else, I think it's kind of reshuffling how Americans are thinking about this thing that hasn't affected the average American household for a very long time. And again, going back to this wartime footing, I think Americans are waking up to the idea that you actually do need to prepare. You need to prepare to project force. You need to prepare to visit lethal destruction on an adversary so that you never have to. And I don't think we're going to have another Google Maven walkout moment. I don't think it's going to happen, not in our generation of business leaders. I think we are firmly on the ground of it's cool to be patriotic Americans again.
Klay.
Yeah, interesting you said that, because we actually we were in London for a week, and then Geneva the week after that, with nothing but back-to-back meetings, end users, VCs, et cetera, and our European entity that we're opening up there. But one of the
That was a nice humble brag. I liked that.
Was it a low flex? So one of the 12 meetings in Mayfair, London, actually dropped out because they used those exact words, and I was like, what?
Defensive only.
Yeah, defensive only. And I remember thinking, like, what are they talking about? So going back to the root question, now we're from Texas, so we probably just don't care. Like we've always kind of been defense, and we have kinetics, and we deliver bullets, beans, Band-Aids, bombs, whatever. Barbecue sometimes. So I think, like, a lot of maybe the West Coast shift when it comes to like popularity of things, like I don't really have to balance that in Texas. Like, we're always defense, pro-defense.
I'm in Montana, similar.
Yeah. So I know, and this is where we like Palmer, man, he's awesome, because he just all day battles that, and he's really flipped it in a good way here on the West Coast. So that's cool. Andrew's done a good job. So is Shield in San Diego. Yeah. So.
Andrew, did you want to chime in? Are you good?
I'm good.
Cool.
No.
Curious what changes between seed A, B, C, whether that's workforce, headquarters, factories, footprint, that sort of thing. And then a very selfish question: when do you stop considering yourself a startup? Because I get a lot of angry emails from people I write about, and they're like, I'm not a startup. I'm like, you're a startup.
I swear I'm not a small business anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. At Shield, we were always trying to remind people that we were a startup, that we're still fighting for it. We tried to keep that culture alive, the scrappy, get stuff done. I don't want to be too hard on the primes. I have respect for them. I think they've built some incredible capability. They're patriots, and they have some incredible people. But if you've worked with the prime for the most part, you know how it goes. It is slow, painfully slow. Every other Friday off. They do not have hustle. They are not going to be the solution to this problem that this country has. And so keeping that startup mindset, I think, is super important. So at Shield, I never wanted us to lose that startup mentality. That was the heart and soul of what we did. And I think, Anduril's the same, and I think Palantir's the same. I just say, honestly, never lose it and never try and lose that label. I think it's a good label.
I noticed from seed to a couple of convertible debt note offerings to A to B and now C, I've noticed I'm turning grayer every year. And so that's like one very visible, notable item. I don't care about the startup label. I think one label that is actually codified as important for us is the definition of non-traditional contractor. And that is a broad brush term for companies that are not in that legacy set, right, and don't hit certain threshold requirements. That's an important thing because this administration, and this likely transcends, whatever happens in the midterms and beyond, contracting opportunities are being extended to non-traditional contractors in a way that was never really the case before. The easy button of, just hand off a project to a prime contractor, we'll see the product in 10 to 15 years. Those days are kind of, I'm not saying that that's over. I'm not saying that their days are numbered or anything, but I think that mindset is shifting. So I don't care about the startup label. I do care very deeply about being recognized as a high-performing, non-traditional contractor.
I want to follow up with you, or maybe the whole panel, but what you said made me think of this.
Turning gray.
I am. It's bad in the morning when I wake up.
No.
It's hidden in the flow. The Trump administration 2.0 specifically feels very build baby build, X baby X, whatever phrase you want. Very pro-American reindustrialization. You're hearing it from all the departments. I'm just curious what is going to happen in 2028. Should businesses now be thinking about 2028 and what that economic agenda might look like if that is less of a... Will 2028 not have a $1.5 trillion budget, and what effect does that have?
That's a good question, because I think that depends on China, because 2028 is like right there on the tip of 27, 28, and we've all been kind of working toward this thing in the South China Sea, and for 26, 27, 28, and 29, and so that's right there in the middle. So that is, it's very intriguing on which way that could go.
I think that this is probably one of those few areas of bipartisan alignment. I think we can maybe thank Putin for that. I think everyone sees the risk, everyone sees the threat. I don't think anyone is saying that China is anything but what it is, and the CCP and what they're trying to do and what Xi is doing. I don't believe there'll be a huge change. I think we are committed to the world events, and as a nation, I think we'll continue on course. I could be wrong, but there'll be change. And I'll also just be clear, like when an administration changes, there will be changes, right? It's not going to look exactly the same, but for the most part, I think most of these big changes, everyone would agree, are good things. I think on both sides of the political aisle.
2026 might be as consequential as 2028 with the midterms, because let's say the Democrats take the House, all of a sudden the House Appropriations Subcommittee for Defense changes, chairmanship to Betty McCollum instead of Ken Calvert. I think you're likely to start seeing stuff happen within this year that are meaningful adjustments and changes to the appropriating footing of the national security apparatus. And then maybe in conjunction with that, because all of this is sort of uncertain, a lot of it hinges on geopolitical events, a lot of it hinges on political, tides turning and all of that stuff. Companies like ours that operate in a national defense scene that we believe, I think this is probably true for everybody, to me, it's like a non-political, non-partisan, or at worst, bipartisan affair. So if you try to align too closely with the whims or vagaries of any certain administration or political tribe, you're going to get crosswise eventually with somebody. So instead, you should still work toward building capability that meets actual requirements that are enduring requirements or emerging requirements that really have no political flavor to them at all. That being said, there's a lot of money to be made if you are reading those wins, the political wins, accurately. I just don't know that, I don't know that our company is, not only are we not positioned to do that, I don't think I'm smart enough to do that. And I think that it's better for the national defense if you don't do that.
Last question before I want to jump to the audience. Texas, Montana, you have the Gundo folks, you have the Beltway people like myself. Where is the best place to do business or raise money or sell?
America.
That wasn't a tee up, I promise.
I mean, obviously, we think Texas because we don't have a corporate tax there, and we're very big on defense, and we're a defense company, and there's a lot of airspace, and we need airspace, and everyone's very pro what we do. So it's a nice place to live, and cost of living, and so on and so forth, and all the right reasons. But we also have facilities in Arizona. So yeah, I mean, a lot of big sky in Texas, and we need the sky to fly in, so that's part of it.
Hold on a second. Montana's big sky country.
Yeah, but we're like,
you can't claim that.
we're like bigger sky. Like we have more of it.
I'll give a very hedged answer.
I disagree.
It depends. It depends what you're focused on. I'd say, if you're focused on aerospace, for instance, probably LA is one of the better places. There are just so many startups, and really what you're chasing there is talent. And so there's just a lot of great talent now in and around that area. Obviously, DC has great cybersecurity talent. Austin has some really good hardware and manufacturing talent. So again, it just depends on what you're doing. Oh, by the way, if you start your company and you're not in one of those areas, that's not the end of the world. But just know that you're optimizing, for something else, and you will have to overcome that challenge then. But for the most part, I would say, if you're getting into a specific area, probably try to take a survey of where most of the successful companies in that space are, and try and orient yourselves close to them.
Unless you're hardware and they're a hardware startup and you have to locate yourself near supply chains and manufacturing sites and warehousing and all that stuff, if you're building a software company and you want to locate your business operations where the best talent is, why fix yourself to any geography at all? And I'm not saying that every company can or should be a full remote company, but when you can take advantage of talent arbitrage by hiring the best talent no matter where they are, then it's not actually about physical geography and where you locate or headquarter the company, with some exceptions, and I can talk about those. But why not take full advantage of the entire American or even Western nation allied partnered workforce? Why not do that? It's becoming more and more accessible. Talent base is becoming very accessible to anybody, anywhere.
I see where you're going there, but to be a bit controversial, I'll say in-person is better than remote. And I think it will always be, and I know that's not always very popular.
Half the room's like, boo.
But
I'm disagreeing.
you can't change human brain chemistry. And human brain chemistry is very clear on this, is that human-to-human contact is really important. I think it's important for your culture. I think it's important for your performance. This is what I'm going to say. I will not turn down a world-class engineer that wants to join my team just because they're remote. But all things being equal, I will try to have them in person. And when we meet, when my team gets together in person and everyone's there, the level of creativity and problem solving is much better, without a doubt. And I think it's just, human beings were wired this way. We cannot reach that same level of high performance brain chemistry when you're remote. And that's one of those few times you could be like, that's science. Sorry, people.
I very much miss the newsrooms of old, pre-COVID, where you were getting yelled at across the room and things thrown at you and that sort of thing. Audience, do y'all have questions? We have about 6.5 minutes left. We can alternate.
I'm going to head off the first question. There's no room in Montana. Don't even bother.
I think you were first, so go ahead.
Fine, thanks. Klay, I've worked with Klay in the past. I appreciate him. I appreciate what you guys are doing. The piece that we haven't heard about relative to defensive only, different parts. What about dual use, like where there is a commercial application and you have an opportunity to do both, right? How have you seen that change the equation?
Yeah, so actually there is more money now for dual use, and people are talking about it more. And our bird, even though the lowest hanging fruit is defense, offshore oil rigs, delivering to offshore oil rigs, 100-pound payload, many miles offshore, all around the world, way more efficient. And if you actually go apples to apples on helicopter flight time, because helicopters, especially military helicopters or PHI or ERA, they don't really wrap in the airframe cost, which isn't fair. Like, that's not apples to apples. So if they did do apples to apples, then we'd be like $150 to $200 a flight hour, and they'd be like 4,000.
Yeah.
And so there's a statistic here that we learned by the reason why we chose the size of airplane that we did, is that 95% of all critical component parts is under 50 pounds. And that's the same in the military and oil and gas. And so that was very unique and interesting. And so that's why we created this 100-pound payload box, 350-pound bird that can go 1,600 nautical miles. And so, yes, dual use is, I think, very practical where we live, and a lot of, even the Pentagon wants to see dual use. So, if that answers your question.
Even the VCs too, right? That
Well, the
response?
VCs, yeah, it's a double whammy on their money, right? Because we can do the civilian side, the civilian sector.
Everybody wants dual use, and dual use is a good idea if you can pull it off. But as an entrepreneur, I would be very careful. This is why. I'll use an analogy. I'm in software. When you're architecting a system, there's no one right architecture. It depends on what you're optimizing to. In our case, we are optimizing to agentic capability. It changes everything from the way you design the database layer, to the APIs, to the back end, to the security architecture, to the front end. Everything is different. When you optimize your business to commercial sales and a commercial product, you build a different business. If you build for defense, you build a different business. What I mean is you kind of got to choose one. You can have a dream of dual use, and there are probably exceptions to my rule. You can have a dream of dual use, but with limited resources, you better pick one and nail it. And then once you nail it, then you can think about switching. But what you will find is that switching will be really difficult because it's going to touch every element of not just your product, but the way you do business. It's just a different world. And so I'm all for dual use, and there's some great cases out there. But again, if you're an entrepreneur, be a little bit careful about that as you build your business.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Hi, I'm a lead startup, Sumit. Clay, you brought up a very important pointer for me. How would you really differentiate and quantify between asshole and a straight up?
Say again? Sorry, I can't.
How would
Can you
you
get closer to the mic?
How would you differentiate between an asshole and a straight up person?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
The asshole.
who is the asshole? Or
You
how do you know?
differentiate. It's very hard. We see there is always a
I know, that's actually, it actually is a very good question, because you know what scares me are we talking about hiring people again?
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what scares me the most is like when, like the luxury that we have, because we know the next 200, 300 people that we would bring to the company 100%, and having a base, the 10, 20, 30 people that you found the company with, at some point you're not going to know the person that's on the other side of them, but you're going to trust them that they aren't going to hire an asshole, because everyone has this no asshole policy. So you know that by the time you have 100, 150 people, you shouldn't have very many assholes in there, as everyone kept to the game plan. The problem is when the new people, the unknowns, and then all of a sudden you're going off resumes, and there's nothing more dangerous than a great resume and a shitty person. That's a fact. That's how cancer gets in an organization, and I think we've lived it. I don't know if you've
Why are you
lived it.
pointing at Andrew?
Fire fast. Fire them all fast. I'm just kidding. But does that answer your question? It's
And between VC and a startup guy, it's a big rift.
is it for
Sorry,
me?
Between VC and a startup.
Between VC and a startup.
Yeah.
So he said,
an
oh,
entrepreneur.
okay. Well, the best thing I can say, this is for hiring and for VCs and for developing any relationship, the best way to gauge whether somebody is a jerk is actually just to work with them. Point being is if the best way to always develop or engage in a relationship is if somebody can vouch for them. If they've worked with them and they say this person is great, they're probably great, right? Jerks tend to be known as jerks. And so what I would say is just build your networks, make sure you have trust-based relationships. If you're taking on a VC investor, do your due diligence, make sure that they're good people and that they talk to the other founders that have worked with them. But there's no surefire way, but that's probably the best way.
Clay, real quick, because I do want to get that last question in.
Just real quick example, real world example. When Bronson, our COO, and Gage, our CRO, when we all met at In Situ before Boeing bought us in 2007, 2008, one of the requirements was to go through a full day process of like 14 interviews at In Situ, which was long and so on and so forth and great. But the final one that meant the most was at the end of the day, you get done, you go take a shower, you meet them at the bar, and they're gonna have a drink with you. And if you're an idiot, you did not get hired. So sometimes that's another, how people handle themselves when they're not in character. And that's really what you want to find out in an interview, right?
That's a good point. All right,
Alcohol
famous last words.
Andrew, thank you for saying that the prime contractors are slow. Somebody had to say it. My name is Shadia Maldonado. I'm the co-founder of ArcQubit, which is a software company. Was there ever a time where you raised foreign capital or brought in money from a foreign investor? And how did you handle that? I ask because we built a platform that helps you with digital transformation from a cybersecurity PQC standpoint, but also helping you orchestrate your cloud AI and quantum resources.
Thank you.
I'm thinking carefully about answering that question. Honestly, I think a little bit about what I am allowed to share and what I'm not. But it's not a very satisfying answer, but I'll say this. Be very conscious about, this was said in one of the previous sessions, definitely be very conscious about where your capital is coming from and make sure that it's not going to run you into any problems down the road. Again, it was said earlier, but if you think you're going to need, say, a facilities clearance, or you think you're going to close on certain levels of contracts that require that you have to know your cap table. And so that's just, I think any investor in the room will tell you, like, know your cap table. Yes, know your cap table, know where that money is coming from, and be cautious about foreign capital. It doesn't mean you can't take it. It just means, like, this is a good time to talk to experts and see, like, what are the potential second, third, fourth order effects about taking that foreign capital.
And the cutoff was what, 25%? Isn't it like 25%? And I think Trump was even bringing that down a little bit because he doesn't want foreign investment. So I think safe side, like, because our team's talking about that right now. That's why we went to Europe. And so our threshold's kind of like right there at the 15 to 20%. Now you go into Series A, that gets diluted, and you're back in safety zone and so on and so forth. But that's kind of how we looked at the problem.
We're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you guys for the insights, and thanks for y'all hanging around.
Thanks, Colin.